Welcome to MOOC's online course on urban local governance. Today's lecture will be on personal administration. I am Ms. G. Hemalata, Assistant Professor from the Department of Public Administration, Anna Adarsh College for Women, Chennai. In today's lecture, various topics are going to be covered under personal administration, like the role of civil service in developing societies, its features, training aspects, promotion, the rights of civil servants, and the disciplinary action that is involved with regard to the civil servants. First, to start with, the role of civil service in developing societies. Several features of civil services can be noted in this slide. The military, judicial, and police services are basically excluded from the civil services. Apart from all of these mentioned as military, judicial, or police services, can be included under what we call it as the civil services. And the persons who are serving in political offices are also excluded from the civil services. So, which means the politicians are not part of the civil services. Basically, civil service is a body of professional administrators who have expertise in their respective fields. And the civil servants are going to be selected impartially, which means there is going to be an open competitive examination for the selection of civil servants. The civil servants are going to be regularly paid by the state. So, till they retire from their service, there is going to be a regular payment to the civil servants by the state. The civil servants are going to occupy their service for their entire lifetime. So, it is considered to be a career service. And the civil servants are considered to be having skills in their respective fields, and they gain professionalism and expertise out of the service that they possess. The civil servants are basically maintaining certain principles in their tenure, like that of principle of hierarchy, where there is a chain of command being followed. So, there is a pyramid of command which is going to happen from the top to the bottom, and that is how the orders are going to be passed. And this is how the principle of hierarchy and the chain of command works out. Also, the civil servants going to work on the principle of neutrality, which means any political party that is ruling, that is not a matter of consideration for the civil servants at all, because they have to serve impartially in whichever political regime they are working. Also, they are going to follow the principle of anonymity. So, they are going to be completely aware of what roles and responsibilities they are supposed to do, and they work anonymously, that is behind the screens of what the politicians give as commands. What role the civil servants have got to play in today's developing societies? There are several important roles that are being displayed by the civil servants in today's developing world. The first and foremost is policy implementation. This is the most significant aspect of the civil servants, because whatever policies are being framed by the policy makers have to be translated into action by the civil servants. So, this aspect is considered to be the most important one as far as the civil service is concerned. Second, with regard to policy formulation, basically the legislators are responsible for framing the laws. So, the parent law is being framed by the policy makers, whom we call them as legislators. Now, these civil servants are going to share their expertise, and they are going to assist the policy makers while they frame the policies. So, in today's world, the civil servants have got to play an important role in policy formulation as well. Next is about delegated legislation. Delegated legislation is nothing but where the authority of legislation, that is framing laws or framing rules or bylaws, is passed on to the next level. That is, the policy makers are not finding enough time to give proper shape to the parent law which is being framed in the parliament or in the state legislative assemblies. So, to give it a proper shape, this delegated legislation is given to the civil servants. So, by which the civil servants have got the authority to frame the bylaws, rules and regulations within the ambit of the parent law. And because of this nature of function that is being carried out by the civil servants with respect to framing laws and framing rules, they are considered to be working on a quasi-legislative manner, which means partially they are also responsible for framing laws. So within the parent law, the civil servants are going to frame these rules and bylaws, and this is what we call it as the delegated legislation, and this is considered to be a partially legislative function. Next is about administrative adjudication. Adjudication is about settlement of disputes between two parties, and here this adjudication is going to be done in terms of citizens and the state. So the civil servants are going to play an important role in the settlement of disputes between the citizens and the state. And this function is considered to be a quasi-judicial function because they are directly involved in giving judgments on certain important aspects related to administration. So if something fails in the administrative activity and if the settlement of disputes have to be done by them with respect to citizens and the state, then the civil servants can intervene directly into this. And some of the examples that could be given for this particular category is about administrative tribunals, income tax appellate tribunals, rent tribunals, etc. So tribunals are basically considered to be administrative courts where the disputes are settled, and here the civil servants again they play an important role in adjudication of disputes in these tribunals. Some of the other functions which are being carried out by the civil servants include administrative planning, administration of public enterprises, assisting the ministers and handling financial operations of the state, reforming administration and also public relations. So apart from policy formulation, policy implementation, administrative adjudication, delegated legislation, these important functions are also being carried out by the civil servants in their day-to-day lives because they form a very significant part of the sovereign territory of our country. So that is the reason why they are also involved in these important functions like planning, administration of public enterprises and assisting the ministers in whatever aspects they have to, and handling all the financial operations of the state. And if suppose something new needs to be introduced, so their reforms can also be made by the civil servants, and of course they need to maintain good public relations. Different types of bureaucracy has been extensively explained by F.M. Marx in his book The Administrative State. So the first one is about guardian bureaucracy. This guardian bureaucracy is a condition where the civil servants themselves are going to be acting as the guardians of the state. So this kind of bureaucracy was prevalent in the ancient Chinese bureaucracy and also in the Prussian bureaucracy. So Marx has extensively described about the ancient Chinese bureaucracy and the Prussian bureaucracy under this particular classification of guardian bureaucracy. So these kind of bureaucracies existed in 1960 AD in terms of the ancient Chinese bureaucracy and in the 17th and in the 18th centuries as far as the Prussian bureaucracy is concerned. The second category is caste bureaucracy, which is otherwise called as the aristocratic personal system. So basically this caste bureaucracy is a condition where the civil servants are going to be selected based on whether they belong to upper castes or upper classes. So the aristocrats are given the preference for being selected as the civil servants in the caste bureaucracy. The third type of bureaucracy is called as patronage bureaucracy, which is otherwise called as the spoils system, and here the recruitment is based on personal favor or political reward. So here this system that is being followed in US most often, it is considered to be the spoils system because the recruitment of the civil servants is purely based on personal favoritism or some political reward that is being gained by the civil servants. The next category of bureaucracy is called as merit bureaucracy. Merit bureaucracy, it encompasses certain important aspects like open competitive examinations have to be conducted, and it is considered to be a life tenure of service, that is till the civil servants retire from their service, they have to occupy their positions as long as they don't involve themselves in any wrongful act. An in-service training program is also provided to the civil servants during their service, and these civil servants are going to be classified based on position. So, this is what is being called as position classification, and the promotion of the civil servants is completely based on merit, and also these civil servants are entitled to various retirement programs. There is another classification of bureaucracy which is given by Merle Fainsod. He has given different classifications, like the first one being called as the representative bureaucracies. Here in this representative bureaucracy, the civil servants are responsible and responsive to the political forces. So, whichever political force is ruling the state at that point of time, the civil servants are going to be responsible and responsive to them. So, this is what we call it as a representative bureaucracy, and the political force has also got a greater affinity with the citizens of the state. So, this is one type of bureaucracy where the civil servants are very close to the political forces. The second is party state bureaucracy. Usually this party state bureaucracy is found in totalitarian regimes, and where the state has a one party dominated political system. So, in this one party dominated political system, the civil servants find themselves very close with the respective political parties which are considered to be dominant in that particular state. So, this kind of bureaucracy is very much prevalent in totalitarian regimes where the one party is dominating at all times in the state. The next type of bureaucracy is called as military dominated bureaucracy. So, here the strategic positions are predominantly occupied by the armed forces. So, here the armed forces are going to serve as the civil services. So, they are the ones who are going to provide the maximum command, and they take over the most prominent position in the state. So, this type of bureaucracy is popularly called as the military dominated bureaucracy. The next bureaucracy that was given by Merle Fainsod is ruler dominated bureaucracy. Usually this ruler dominated bureaucracy is found in autocratic regimes. So, where there is a dictator or a ruler who is very strict about his commands and also his ideology, he or she will try to reinforce their commands and ideas to the masses. So, this ruler dominated bureaucracy is very much prevalent in autocratic regimes where the dictator will take the maximum control over his or her subjects. The next and the last category given by Merle Fainsod for the classification of bureaucracy is ruling bureaucracy. This ruling bureaucracy was prevalent during the colonial rule, and here the bureaucracy is considered to be the de facto ruling element. So, the administrators themselves were considered to be the ones giving the maximum command to the people. So, this kind of bureaucracy existed in our country during the British rule. So, these were the different types of classifications of bureaucracies given by Merle Fainsod. Having discussed about the various merits of bureaucracy, now let us move on to the evils of bureaucracy. So, what is the shortcoming of bureaucracy? Several political scientists have described bureaucracy in negative manners. Lord Heward has described bureaucracy as new despotism, because bureaucracy is trying to infringe the political aspects, and also they are trying to take maximum control over the population, and because of which they are also trying to gain favoritism. So, that has really created the new despotism in almost all the developing countries. So, that is the reason why Lord Heward has described bureaucracy as new despotism. C.K. Allen has concentrated on the positive side of bureaucracy. He has said that bureaucracy is considered to be a triumph, because mostly the bureaucrats are trying to emulate the practices that have been followed earlier, and they are trying to have maximum control over the subjects and also the administration, and they have their wings being spread across the length and breadth of the country. So, that is the reason why they take maximum control over administration. So, that is how they are considered to be successes in all areas. So, that is how C.K. Allen has described about bureaucracy as its triumph. H. J. Lasky has described that bureaucracy is that power which jeopardizes the liberty of citizens. Whenever the bureaucracy is trying to take the maximum control in a state, automatically the liberty of citizen is going to be damaged. So here H. J. Lasky has sidelined on the negative aspect of bureaucracy. He said that whenever there is a rise of power in the bureaucracy, that is going to infringe the liberty of the citizens. Ramsay Muir has given about the evils of bureaucracy in his book How Britain is Governed. So this was a popular contribution given by Ramsay Muir. He has described that bureaucracy thrives under the cloak of ministerial responsibility and it becomes ruinous when it becomes the master. So as long as there is a limit being maintained by the bureaucracy, there is nothing wrong. But if the bureaucracy is superseding the political aspect, then it becomes the master. So as long as ministerial responsibility is existing, there is nothing wrong about it. But when it is taking control over the political aspect, then bureaucracy becomes ruinous. It becomes the master. The next evil that was described was by Parkinson in his book The Rising Pyramid of Bureaucrats. He has described about Parkinson's law. He said that officials make work for each other. So when a new bureaucrat is being appointed, automatically the kind of duties and responsibilities that are assigned to the bureaucrat is going to be very huge, and in the coming years the new bureaucrat will be definitely have to be recruited. So there is going to be an enlargement in the number of administrators who have to be constantly pulled in so that the work gets finished. But what is really happening is the work is left incomplete most of the times. So this is how the administrators are trying to magnify their duties and responsibilities by incorporating more number of administrators. Moving on to the next aspect of civil service with regard to recruitment. So recruitment is basically about filling up of vacant posts in the civil services. It has got two different connotations. One is the positive connotation and the other one is the negative connotation. In the positive connotation, recruitment is about filling with the best qualified and the most competent persons, and also there is going to be an aggressive search for best qualified, most talented and highly competent personnel. So if there is a vacancy being created in the government services, automatically competent professionals, best qualified and talented persons are going to be recruited. So this is the positive connotation of recruitment. Coming to the negative connotation of recruitment, basically it is about eliminating the political influence and also prevention of favoritism, and also we say that the rascals have to be kept out of the governance process. So this is the negative connotation of recruitment. So whoever is found to be unsuitable or whoever is found to be unfit, or wherever there is a political influence or favoritism, or if someone is found to be gravely involved in some misconduct, they have to be kept away from the governance process. So this is the negative connotation of recruitment. How the merit system came into existence. So now we are going to see about the rise of merit system with regard to recruitment. So the recruitment and service conditions are governed basically by qualifications, and these qualifications can be educational qualification, technical qualification or personal qualification. Apart from qualification, physical fitness is also considered to be one of the most important criteria for the following of merit system. Physical fitness is about selecting the candidate based on objective standards. So the standards are already set, and based on the standards which are already set, the candidates have to be selected. So if they are conforming with the standards which are set by the government for a particular post, say for example the police service, they have to match the height and weight and certain physical fitness aspects. So when these standards are met by the candidate, then they are going to have a place in the civil service. So apart from qualifications, physical fitness is also going to be considered as an important factor in the merit system. And which was the first country to adopt a scientific system with regard to maintaining this merit principle? It was China. So, China was the first country to adopt the scientific system, and this scientific system of recruiting the candidates in China was called as the Mandarin system. What is meant by Mandarin? A Mandarin is nothing but a person who is holding high office, and this person is usually selected based on open competitive examinations. So, definitely this person who is being selected, that is the Mandarin who is being selected in China, is definitely a talented person and is a very professional person, and also the qualifications are very much suitable from the candidate's aspect. In modern times, Prussia has also been conducting open competitive examinations, and Prussia is following China. So, from 18th century onwards, Prussia has been following this open competitive examinations for following this merit system of recruitment, and this system of merit was followed in India in the year 1853. So, even after it was adopted in India only, it was then taken back to Britain. So, in 1854, this merit system got evolved in Britain. Through this Northcote-Trevelyan report of 1854, this merit system got evolved in Britain. So, it was first in India and followed by India, it was in Britain this merit system came into existence. USA also had this merit system, and this was introduced by the Pendleton Act of 1883. So, when we take the chain of nations that had introduced merit system, it was first China, followed by China it was Prussia, and then in India and Britain, and also in USA through the Pendleton Act of 1883. Now, coming to the next aspect of the civil services regarding their qualifications. So, as I told earlier, qualifications can be of three different kinds. It can be general qualifications, special qualifications, and determining qualifications. So, under these three categories we have to discuss like what are the various conditions that needs to be taken into account while selecting the employees. General qualifications will include certain important aspects like citizenship or civil status, residence or domicile, sex, and then age. If suppose the civil servant is holding citizenship in a particular country, that candidate is eligible to become a civil servant. Suppose take for example India, the civil servant can be a citizen from India, and also Nepal citizens are given preference for being selected as a civil servant. So, this is one condition for the civil servant to be selected in terms of general qualification. Second is residence or domicile. In certain states or in certain local areas, the candidates belonging to a particular local area are given preference for being selected as a civil servant. So, this is a very old fashion of selecting the candidates by means of residence or domicile. It is not very much of prevalence in the recent times. Next, in terms of sex. So, in terms of sex, I mean to say the male or the female will be given preference for being selected as the civil servant. Maybe in certain services the women candidates are given preference, and certain other services the male candidates are being given preference. But as far as India is concerned, we have a system which is common for both the male and the female. So, to maintain that gender balance, we do not take the discrimination in terms of sex while selecting the candidates. And also age. Most often we could find age as one important general qualification when the civil servant has to be selected. Maybe it is 25 years of age or 28 years of age or 32 years of age or 35 years of age. It all depends on certain factors, but age limit is definitely considered for almost all these services of the government. So, these are the general qualifications by which the civil servants are being selected. So, it can be by way of citizenship or civil status, residence or domicile, sex or age. The next type of qualification is the special qualifications. So, special qualifications will include educational qualification, experience, technical knowledge, and then personal qualifications. Educational qualification is self-explanatory. Possessing a UG degree or possessing a higher secondary school certificate or possessing a professional degree are different requisites for various services. So, based on the particular criteria for a particular service, educational qualification will be considered as one important special qualification, and also experience. So, few civil servants have to gain experience for them to be promoted or for them to move to the next level. So, experience is also going to act as special qualification. Apart from educational qualification and experience, technical knowledge is also another special qualification. Take for example, engineers or lawyers or any other technical positions will require technical knowledge of the civil servants. So, for which this is considered to be one of the most important criteria. And the last one is with regard to personal qualifications, like they have to possess certain important qualities of honesty, faithfulness, integrity. So, these personal qualifications are also considered for certain positions. Though this is a very different kind of qualification which is set forth under the special qualifications category, it is not of much use in the Indian aspect, because we take into consideration the examinations, personality tests, educational qualifications and experience, but in terms of promotion, personal qualifications can be acting as an important factor. In the first level of recruitment, personal qualifications does not matter much, because it is not possible to know to what extent honesty, faithfulness and other positive attributes of an individual will be taken into account. The determining qualifications, which is the third category, it is considered to be another important factor, and it includes personal judgment of the appointing authority, evaluation of qualifications with regard to experience and past record, and also written examination. So, apart from the general qualifications and the special qualifications, determining qualifications are also very important, because that will help in understanding the candidate in terms of the judgment which is made by the appointing authority. Usually the head of the department is considered to be the appointing authority. If the civil servant is found to be involved in some grave misconduct, the person could be fired from the service. So, this is a system which is popularly called as the hire and fire system. Apart from which, the civil servants can also be evaluated based on their qualifications, experience and past records. So, basically we call it as the performance appraisal report, and based on what performance has been put by the civil servant in his or her service, that is going to be taken into account for determining the qualifications. And written examination is also another important aspect. So, written examination, they are of various kinds. It includes ability tests, aptitude tests, achievement tests and personality tests. Ability tests will have again certain important categories like general intelligence test, which was introduced by Binet and Simon, unit trait system that was introduced by L.L. Thurston, social intelligence test was introduced by L.L. Thurston and his team, administrative ability tests was otherwise called as the Gottschall system, and this was also introduced by L.L. Thurston. Mechanical intelligence test is also another important form of ability tests. So, apart from testing the ability of the candidate, the aptitude, the skill knowledge is also going to be tested, and that is through the aptitude test. Achievement test is another factor, and personality test is also another important factor when written examinations are concerned. So, various tests are being conducted to know the full personality or the full achievements or the complete ability and aptitude of the individuals who have to be placed in important civil services. Important aspect is about the oral examination. The oral examination can otherwise be called as an interview. So, this oral examination again has got different categories like the selection board procedure, viva voce test, personality test, reading interview and group oral system. So, group oral system is about conducting group discussions. Reading interview is where the unfit candidates or unsuitable candidates are taken away from the positions. Personality test will try to test the personality of the individual. Viva voce test is going to test the ability and the knowledge and the skill of the individual while conducting the viva. And selection board procedure is where the board is going to be responsible for selecting the candidates, and with regard to the professionalism and other positive attributes possessed by the individuals, the board will select the candidate. And apart from oral examination or the interview, performance test where the abilities of the civil servants are being demonstrated, that is considered to be the most important factor for selecting the civil servants, and physical test which includes physical fitness and medical examination. So, these are also other important aspects of selecting the civil servants. So, oral examination, performance test and physical tests are other ways of selecting the candidates. So far we had seen about the rise of civil services in developing societies, its features, and what are the important aspects with regard to the qualifications that need to be possessed by the civil servants, and the different types of tests which are conducted to know the personality of the civil servant and how they can be retained or whether they can be promoted or demoted, all that has been discussed so far. So, I am sure this will give an understanding about how personnel administration has taken a better shape in the evolving societies, and how we have taken examples from various countries and how the same system or with some variations how the existing system has been followed in our own country. Thank you.